What if one of the most famous deaths in American history never fully ended the story? What if the world mourned in 1977 did not simply vanish into memory, but slipped into legend in a way that still refuses to be buried? Because when it comes to Elvis Presley, the mystery has never been only about his music, his fame, or even his death. It is about something deeper, something stranger, something that has haunted popular culture for decades. Why did rumors begin almost immediately after his reported death? Why did alleged sightings keep appearing in places they should not have? And why, after all these years, do some of those stories still feel disturbingly hard to explain? For millions of people, Elvis was never just a singer. He was a phenomenon, a man so famous, so mythic, and so deeply woven into American identity that the idea of his disappearance never felt emotionally complete. But in the years that followed, August 16, 1977, that emotional disbelief turned into something else. It turned into suspicion. Witnesses claimed they saw him. Travelers reported encounters. Fans pointed to strange details surrounding the funeral, the records, the name Jon Burrows, and a series of sightings that seemed too specific, too consistent, or simply too bizarre to dismiss as ordinary fantasy. The question was no longer whether people missed Elvis. The question became whether at least one of those sightings was pointing to something real. Before we go any further, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and support the project if you enjoy serious investigations into mysteries, conspiracies, and stories that still refuse to disappear. And I want you to comment below before the end. Do you believe Elvis Presley truly died in 1977? Or do you think there is at least a possibility that one sighting, one detail, or one unexplained clue suggests the story is not as closed as the world believes? Stay with me, because some of the evidence behind this theory is far stranger than most people realize. Officially, Elvis Presley died on August 16, 1977, at Graceland in Memphis, Tennessee. The world was told that the king of rock and roll was gone, and the public response was immediate, emotional, and overwhelming. Fans grieved as if they had lost a member of their own family. The media moved quickly. Obituaries, tributes, memorials, and endless coverage followed. On the surface, it looked like the tragic but final end of an American icon. But almost from the very beginning, not everyone accepted that the story was as simple as it appeared. Part of that disbelief came from the scale of Elvis himself. He was too big, too famous, too culturally dominant to feel mortal in the normal way. But another part came from the details. Conspiracy theories do not survive for decades on emotion alone. They survive because certain details, however explainable they may be, keep people from fully letting go. In Elvis's case, several of those details appeared so early and so dramatically that they became permanent fuel for suspicion. Questions emerged about how quickly information moved, about who saw what, about inconsistencies in descriptions, and about whether the official version left too many cracks open for public trust to settle. One of the most talked about elements in the theory is the alias Jon Burrows, a name closely associated with Elvis during his life. He reportedly used it on occasion for travel and privacy. For most people, that is simply a small biographical detail. But for believers in the survival theory, it became something much more significant. Why? Because not long after Elvis's reported death, rumors circulated that a man resembling him had been seen using that same name in connection with travel. Over time, this detail grew into one of the most famous pillars of the theory. To skeptics, it is coincidence, distortion, or myth-making. To believers, it is one of the most unsettling clues in the entire case. Then came the sightings, and that is where the story stopped being only a grief reaction and became a full-blown American mystery. Alleged sightings of Elvis were reported in airports, diners, gas stations, roadside motels, and quiet neighborhoods. Some were laughable. Some were clearly attention-seeking. Some contradicted each other completely. But a few stood out because they came from witnesses who claimed they were not chasing fame, not trying to cash in, and not interested in becoming part of a legend. They simply said they saw a man who looked, moved, spoke, or carried himself in a way that felt too close to Elvis to ignore. The most intriguing sightings were never the loudest ones. They were the ones wrapped in ordinary moments. A man standing alone in a terminal, a figure noticed from across a parking lot, a chance encounter where the witness only later realized why the face felt so familiar. These reports had a particular power because they were not staged in glamorous settings. They were small, almost accidental, which made them feel more believable to those who wanted to believe. If Elvis had chosen to disappear, would he reappear as a spectacle, or would he surface in the kind of quiet, forgettable places where almost nobody would think to look twice? There is one reason these sightings became so culturally explosive. Many people did not just believe Elvis could have survived. They believed he had a reason to leave. According to some theories, the pressures of fame, financial complications, health issues, personal exhaustion, or even fear may have created a motive for escape. In this reading, Elvis was not a man escaping success. He was a man trapped by it. He had become too visible to live normally, too famous to disappear honestly, and too burdened to continue as the world demanded. From that perspective, the ultimate vanishing act would not be madness, it would be freedom. Of course, this is where serious analysis matters. There is no confirmed evidence that Elvis faked his death. No official record has overturned the accepted history. No verified appearance has ever established that he survived past 1977. That needs to be stated clearly, but the reason the theory refuses to die is that it is not built on one single claim. It is built on accumulation. Strange detail after strange detail, witness account after witness account, emotional reactions mixed with small inconsistencies, symbolic clues, rumors, and the sense that America never quite finished processing the loss. The theory lives because it keeps finding just enough material to stay alive. Another reason the mystery survives is the funeral itself. Over the years, stories circulated about people who thought something felt unusual about the viewing, the body, the atmosphere, or the behavior of those around the event. Some claimed the face did not look right. Others said the physical appearance seemed off. Critics of these claims argue, with good reason, that embalming, lighting, stress, rumor, and grief can distort perception dramatically. And that is true, but in the world of conspiracy theories, perception matters almost as much as evidence. Once enough people begin to feel that something was strange, the feeling becomes part of the case, whether or not it proves anything. Then there is the simple fact that Elvis was one of the very few people on Earth whose identity could survive death almost as strongly as life. He was not merely famous. He was endlessly imitated. His face, his voice, his clothes, his mannerisms, his sideburns, his posture, and even his silence became public property in the imagination of millions. That creates a unique problem. When someone so recognizable disappears, every similar face becomes suspicious. Every coincidence acquires weight. Every rumor finds fertile ground. In a strange way, Elvis created the perfect conditions for his own afterlife. As a mystery, but some supporters of the theory believe one sighting rises above the rest, not because it proves survival beyond doubt, but because it combines timing, context, and detail in a way that continues to disturb people. These accounts vary depending on who tells them, but they often involve a sighting shortly after the reported death, in a setting linked to travel, under circumstances that felt too immediate to be written off as fantasy. The logic behind these stories is powerful in a conspiratorial sense. If a disappearance had been staged, the first days would be the most dangerous and the most revealing. A brief mistake, a fleeting appearance, a witness who noticed the wrong person at the wrong time. That is exactly the kind of crack believers would expect. This is what makes the phrase, "the sighting no one can explain," so compelling. It does not mean the sighting has been scientifically proven. It means it has never been emotionally or culturally erased. It remains in circulation because it fits the mystery too well. A man with Elvis's features, a familiar alias, an unusual timeline, a report that arrived too quickly to be fully absorbed into mass hysteria. These elements, taken together, are not proof, but they are the kind of narrative fragments that conspiracy theories feed on for generations. They do not close the case, they keep it permanently open. There is also a psychological layer that cannot be ignored. America was not ready to let Elvis go. In some sense, maybe it still is not. The survival theory is not only about evidence. It is about national grief transformed into folklore. It is about what happens when a culture loses a figure so large that death feels like an unacceptable answer. In those moments, people do not just preserve memory. They create continuation. They build stories in which the icon is not dead, only hidden. Not gone, only watching from a distance. The more symbolic the figure, the more powerful the resurrection myth becomes. Still, What makes the Elvis case different from pure fantasy is that it sits in an uncomfortable middle ground. The official explanation exists, but the mythology around it is unusually durable. Most celebrity survival rumors fade, become jokes, or dissolve into irrelevance. Elvis's did not. They became part of his legend. Why? Because enough details kept surfacing to make disbelief feel entertaining, but also just believable enough to feel unsettling. A report here, a photograph there, a witness statement repeated for years, a strange connection to a name, a location, a timeline. None of it settles the issue. All of it keeps the story alive, and that may be the real reason this mystery endures. Not because the evidence is definitive, but because the uncertainty is irresistible. Elvis Presley stood at the perfect intersection of fame, myth, secrecy, and American imagination. If any public figure could generate a theory powerful enough to outlive facts, it would be him. And if any alleged sighting could remain culturally immortal without ever being fully resolved, it would be an Elvis sighting. That is why the question still carries weight. Not just did someone think they saw him, but was there one moment, one witness, one clue that came too close to the truth? So is Elvis Presley alive? The responsible answer is that there is no verified evidence that he survived beyond 1977. But the deeper answer, the one that keeps this mystery alive, is more complicated. The legend persists because too many people feel that the official ending did not fully erase the possibility of something else. A hurried detail, a suspicious alias, a witness who seemed sincere, a sighting that arrived too soon, a cultural wound that never closed. Together, these things form a mystery that cannot be confirmed, but also cannot be fully forgotten. In the end, the Elvis survival theory tells us as much about the world as it does about Elvis himself. It reveals how badly people want certain icons to escape death, how easily uncertainty turns into folklore, and how powerful a single unexplained sighting can become when it touches the right myth at the moment. Maybe every strange report was just coincidence layered on grief. Maybe every witness only saw what they needed to see. Or maybe in one quiet place, at one impossible moment, someone really did see the king after the world had already said goodbye. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Elvis Presley died in 1977, and the sightings were nothing more than grief, rumor, and misidentification? Or do you think at least one of those reports points to something the public was never supposed to fully understand? Leave your theory in the comments, because this is one of the greatest celebrity mysteries ever told. And if you enjoy serious content about conspiracies, mysteries, hidden evidence, and the stories that refuse to die, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to support the project, because sometimes the most powerful legends are not the ones we invent, but the ones we can never completely explain.